Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Sleep In Saturday, which is AKA, also known as Q&A Day. Q&A Day is the day that we take your questions, the listeners, and then we file through them, pick out the ones that we like, and throw away the ones we don't like, the ones that we can't answer. And now we put them in order, and then we divvy them up. Mara divvies them up. She reaches into a big ball with questions and pulls them out, gives them to me and Kaustubha to read, and then we try to answer questions for those on a spiritual path. And you know what? If you're on a spiritual path, questions will arise. That's part of our growth. We start to try to apply this stuff to life, and more questions come up. Now, don't get down with questions. It's important. Matter of fact, in the yoga system, it's called sharpening your buddhi, sharpening your intelligence, sharpening your discernment. We need these questions to move forward. And if people don't ask questions, that's when I start to worry about them. So thanks for all these great questions. Wish we can get to them all. Sometimes they really speak loud, and we got to answer this one. Kaustubha, how are you?
It's great to be. I'm up here with you, Raghu. Super
I know.
Soul Farm,
I know. I was
nice.
just trying to pretend like we weren't. Trying to pretend we weren't, but Kaustubha's actually.
Even though I'm up here,
in the
you can
other
still ask
room.
how I'm doing. But I'm happy because I'm up here with you. That's what.
I put him in the master bedroom yesterday, which is the electricity-less stone cottage, sleeping on a cot. You know what? It's my favorite place. If I could pick one place to live at Super Soul Farm, it'd be that stone cottage.
It's like a tiny little room. It's got nothing in it. It's totally bare. It's got this cot, and that's it.
It's got a cot. And
But I
Kaustubha,
can look out and see the stars. You know, I don't get that.
Kaustubha said yesterday on the show, it's about simplicity and kindness. I was like, really? Good. Get your butt in the cabin. Get your butt in the stone cottage, Mr.
You want simplicity?
I got simplicity for you. And he walks in and he goes, this is pretty simple.
There's no bathroom. There's no electricity. There's nothing.
So we're up here with Zoomer Bobby Marchand, who's leading the training with myself and Kaustubha, and we're having a fun time. We got Josh and Jeff, and Eric Noble was up here. And they're Zoomers, and they just built this whole beautiful outdoor yoga deck, which is really cool. It's like a spaceship up on the hill near the pond. And we're doing yoga out there. Kaustubha christened it yesterday by giving Bhagavad Gita philosophy and yoga philosophy. It's great. It was beautiful. I'm going to post pictures in that. And tomorrow, everybody...
We can share that on Patreon, the recording of that.
Oh, good idea. Share it on Patreon. And tomorrow we got a special guest. We've got Mike D from the Beastie Boys and Eddie Stern from Ashtanga Yoga, New York. Both very interesting, cool people connected to spiritual life and bhakti, and we're going to pick their brain. So if you got, should we take questions for Mike D?
If he's so inclined, if you're so inclined.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying that should we take them from the audience?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That would be sort of interesting. What do you say? You're right.
It may go a different direction. Anything could happen once you do that.
All right, forget it. You can't ask. But you know what? We'll say tomorrow live. If you're on Zoom tomorrow live, you can ask him a question. We might field it if it's sort of cool, funny, and relevant.
Yeah,
funny. Has to be.
What everyone was saying was really great. Was yesterday Kumari's Bharatanatyam class.
I was teaching and I missed it, but I really wanted to. I really wanted
traveling.
to check it out.
Yeah, but people were saying that was really good. So that's
great.
That should be posted soon, right, Mary? We got a recording for that. We can post that.
Yeah, it's actually up on Patreon.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. It's already up there. She is so on the ball, Raghunath.
She is on the ball. She's on the ball. I'm trying to catch her slipping up, but it's hard.
It's hard.
And she cooked for us yesterday too, which is even.
It wasn't just cooking. It was really good. It was this vegan meatball.
Vegan subs. I think she should open like a vegan sub place. Kaustubha's in there.
And
Um,
there was that sweet afterward, that fudge, whatever that was,
the maple
strawberry.
leaf fudge brand. It was like a little Debbie brownie, but healthy. And is that an offense to call it a little Debbie brownie?
Not offended.
Um, oh, Kaustubha. Oh, Kaustubha.
Well, let's go. Come on.
Okay. You know
Oh,
what?
burning questions.
You got some burning questions? Okay.
Ready to go?
Good things going on here.
Pull 'em
Okay.
up.
So how do you want to start this, my friend?
You are going to read a question to me.
I was going to read a question to you first. Ready?
Yeah.
We know Kunti
Well, who's
asked
this from?
Krishna.
You got to say who's this from.
Oh, this is from Devaki Nandan. Devaki Nandan, I can't remember. Is he from England? I can't remember where we met Devaki Nandan now, but Devaki Nandan, this one's for you. This is via email, Wisdom of the Sages. We know Kunti asked Krishna for suffering so that we remember him. Is it something inherent in suffering that snaps us out of trance of Maya and turns us to bhakti, spirituality? Or, tragically in some cases, to even more rajasic paths? Doesn't suffering seem an inefficient method of doing that? It feels like touching your nose around your head. It seems like touching your nose around your head. Is there possibly a more efficient method for us, atmas or souls? Why give us suffering, Krishna? Can't there be better ways to learn lessons? Good question. David
Very good
Nandan.
question. Thank you, Devaki Nandan.
Thank you, David Nandan.
In one sense, yeah. I mean, in one sense, yeah. The question is there a more efficient way? What does it say there? You know, my computer just like I can't even like.
Is there a more efficient way than he compared it to like, why give us suffering? Why not give us a secret message in a treasure chest? You know what I mean? Why not
Yeah.
give us good instruction? Why not give us encouragement? Hey, you're doing good, keep going. Why does why does my heart have to break? Why must I get chronic illness? Why must I lose my home in a tornado? Why,
So,
Krishna? What kind of
why?
lessons are you trying to give?
Questions. Tell me why.
No one knows the question song. That's only for the
Yeah.
Zoomers because we play a sort of funny, lovable song before the show. Okay, go
So
on.
yeah, there is a more efficient way, and that is hearing, right? If we hear, then we don't necessarily have to suffer all these things in life. You were talking about that this morning, Raghunath, right? It said that there's first-class intelligence. First-class intelligence is you just hear from a good source, and you know, right?
Yeah.
If this thing, if touching this stove, if the stove is hot, and someone tells you don't touch that, it's hot, and you say, okay, I heard from a good source, I'll follow that. Then you don't have to suffer, right? But if you're like, I don't know, I'm doubtful, or well, maybe it is, but I think it may be worth it, or and then you're down to second-class intelligence, But David Kanundan mentioned, it reminded me of a story that I've told on the show before about a sadhu that both you and I know named Jayadvaita Swami, who's like, he's like, there's that statement in Chaitanya Charitamrita that says that true eloquence is truth spoken concisely, right? And he's like an editor that's been his service for a very long time, and he's like he's got this very sharp mind, and he'll just edit things down to the most concise form. And one day he was walking down the street in Brooklyn, and a couple cops pulled up beside him, and they said, hey, Hare Krishna guy, yo, what do you got to give up to be a Hare Krishna, right? And his answer was concise, right? And you would think it's gonna be like, oh, you got to give up sex, you got to give up drugs, you got to give up meat, you got to give up this, you got to give up that, like you get hit with the religious kind of rules or something like that. But his answer was, what do you have to give up to be a Hare Krishna? He said, suffering.
You got to give up suffering.
And the way that I understand it is the idea is that our suffering is really due to our ignorance. Suffering follows ignorance. And David Gannon mentioned Queen Kunti and her prayer. Now, Queen Kunti had a prayer, but if you look at that prayer, it's a very famous prayer in the Bhagavatam, where she comes up to Krishna. Krishna's about to leave Hastinapur, where she lived. And she prays, dear Krishna, we've gone through so many calamities in our life. But please, and it's considered like such a courageous prayer, right? Please let those calamities happen again and again. If you took all the toughest times in your life and said, dear God, please let those happen again and again. Why? Because when those calamities happen, then we think of you. And then she said, and therefore we transcend death. But, when you think about that, she wasn't asking for suffering. It was actually the calamities that she was asking for. But when one has the right vision, one doesn't actually suffer.
Oh, you're very clever.
Well,
You
I'm
put
not trying
that
to be
verse
clever.
apart. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, so it wasn't
She asked for
suffering.
the calamities, but she didn't
Yeah.
ask for the suffering.
Yeah.
You?
Well,
That
yeah.
was a
So,
good one.
but all that being said, we generally we find that we, due to our ignorance, due to our attachments, due to our lack of faith, that happiness will be found not through external things, but happiness is my true nature, because we doubt that. We dabble, at least on some level or another, in trying to find enjoyment and happiness through the external things. And the way that the material energy is programmed is that when you do that, suffering, because through material attachment, suffering follows. So we embrace that suffering by embracing, this attempt to find happiness through externals. And so it's not like, why does Krishna have to inflict this? It's we've chosen that because we haven't chosen the more efficient method, which is hearing. But it is very effective because our attachments are so deep, our illusion is so deep, that commonly it's only real suffering that wakes us up, that makes us question the validity of this formula of searching through happiness through external things. Otherwise, we don't question the formula. We get lost, we get bewildered, we're weak. And so that suffering does have a way of making us ask questions. Does this really make sense? Is there something more? Am I not living the best life that I can? It's often suffering that wakes us up to that. Is that all right, Raghu?
You're wise. You are the wisdom of the sages.
No, I am.
Seth the welder is nodding
fake
in the
sage.
background. Look at Seth. Seth is like, yes, he is. Jimmy G's like, double thumbs up. And
Well, that's very kind. But
yes.
I have a problem because my computer screen is froze up. I can't read the questions. So they're going to have to come from you.
Come from Mara. If I read my own questions.
I didn't send Mara. I don't think I sent Mara the list, though. So.
Oh, Mara.
Mara.
Blaming.
Sorry.
I'm sorry that Kaustubha
Can you
didn't
read our
send.
minds, please? Can you send them to her?
I can't. My computer screen's not working. You could send him to her.
Can you send them to me?
Yeah, I can send them to you. Oh, I gotta open mail. You check out while this is happening, check out my shirt, everybody. You can't see it if you're one of the others out there, but I have a Wisdom of the Sages shirt on. Kaustubha brought to me as a gift. You like it?
You gotta stand up a little bit more.
Oh, there you guys, check that out.
A little bit more.
Wisdom of the Sages.
There you go.
All right, Mara. What's your email address again? Mara, in case you want to spam her, it's Mara Simons Jones. There. Alrighty. All right, I'm going to ask myself the question. Oh, this was the unique question you had for me, though, Kaustubha, remember?
Oh, then hold that for later because I never sent
Okay.
that to you, right? I don't know if I'll be able to pull it up or not. So.
Okay.
Take
Here's
any
one.
questions you want.
I find myself... Okay, here's
Who's
one.
it from? Who's it
This
from?
is from Lalita Hughes.
Oh,
Lalita
this is a
Hughes.
deep question.
Okay. What was that? I find myself having a very depressive way of thinking about life lately. I have been reading The Beggar. There's a book by Bhakti-yogi Swami, or B.T. Swami, and it makes me so emotional. When he writes about his realizations in life since finding out that he had only so many months to live, I find myself having this deep realization about death and how it can happen at any time to anyone and even those we love. This realization scares me. And every time I see someone I care about, I don't want that separation to happen because of intense love. I feel for those people, and I guess I have a very strong attachments. I know it will happen someday, but how can I look at this more positively rather than getting overwhelmed with the harsh realities of the material world? Thank you, Lolita Hughes. Great question, huh?
Yeah. That's a deep book, that Bhakti-tirtha Swami book.
Well, Bhattacharya Swami, if you don't know him, Raghunath Swami gives him credit for telling his story and writing it down on paper. On his deathbed, he told Raghunath Swami, please write down your story. And Raghunath Swami thanks him. And I had the good fortune of spending some quality time with Bhakti-tirtha Swami, and he was like just an amazing person.
Yeah.
And he's one of those persons who had a lot of things stacked against him growing up in a ghetto, African American, and he just made a series of great choices. We are just a few choices away from ruining our life. Do you know that, Mara? She's like, yeah, oh yeah. And we're a few choices away from making from changing our life around, turning our life around. Bhakti-tirtha Swami made those good choices. He's pointing out this importance of, at the time of death, he's saying this was a very, very crucial time in his life. And the meditation on death can be a little overwhelming. There's a tendency with Maya or illusion. We deal with death in two ways. One is, let's face it, what is death? It's like a time bomb strapped to your belly. And so I put my shirt over the time bomb and I walk into a party and everybody's like, hey, Raghu, what's going on? What's that bulge on your belly? Nothing. Well, I hear it ticking. What is it? Nothing. No, seriously, there's a big thing under your shirt. What is it? Nothing. We tend to treat death as if it will never happen. We hide it. We put it in the corner. Anything so we don't have to think about it. I get involved in romance, in career, in business, in material hopes and dreams. Anything so I don't have to think about death. And then something happens. Somebody we love dies. Somebody we love is sick. There's a near-death experience, and it blows our mind and shatters our world. And for like, Mary, you don't talk about, you have somebody you love that gets sick or dies or might die. And for like 2 days, you become sober. You become thoughtful. You become, you start thinking, oh my God, that could have happened to me. That could have been me. And for 2 days, you become like Socrates, the Buddha, the Dalai Lama. You become incredibly wise. And then all of a sudden, you go back to normal. You forget immediately. So great thinkers, so this is one thing you can do with death, is hide it. The second thing people do with death is they get neurotic about it. Like Lolita is saying, she's like, it's getting overwhelming. I'm scared. I'm going to lose these people we love. That's not the answer either. It's not to be neurotic about it where you're paralyzed by it. But the yogi, the sage, the thoughtful person, I always quote like Shakespeare, because Shakespeare would write with a skull on his desk to remind him that I am that skull. What's that place, Mara, in Rome with all, catacomb? It's like this catacomb where it has all these it's bones everywhere. And it says in Latin, it says, and it has these skeletons dressed as monks. And it says, as we are now, so you will be. And wait, as we are now, so you will be.
As you are now, we once were, as we are now, you will be.
Yes. And for us to get that and keep that in the forefront of our mind, here comes some Shelter lyrics. You're the only thing that sobers me up and keeps me always trying. And it may look bleak, but I can't be weak and go on with more crying. Each moment I search, it can't get worse. So why do I keep denying? Give up these lies, time's ticking by as I watch this body dying.
Whoa.
Yeah, death and dying for a shelter.
Boom.
And that was my realization when I watched my father die,
Hmm.
that this is the catalyst for my spiritual life. Because
Okay,
otherwise,
now,
it's
Raghu,
just a
that
dream.
that was all very valuable, but the question is, okay,
But I didn't
but
answer the question.
yeah, that's getting me all depressed, and it's it's making me fearful and all that. So what to do about that?
What we do about it is we take that we take that sobriety. In Sanskrit, they call it dhira. The sobriety, the romance of the material world is punctured. We take that sobriety and we use it in the positive, meaning, for example, if I know I'm going to die tomorrow morning, what am I going to do tonight? It's going to radically change what I do tonight. I'm not going to like, I'm going to go to bed early. I like to sleep in, get real rested for death. I want to actually be like, if I know I'm going to die tomorrow morning, I am going to make some phone calls. I'm going to make sure I have no unfinished business. There's a few people I'm going to tell them I love them. There's a few people I'm going to say, I'm sorry. There's a few people I'm going to say, you know what? That was a misunderstanding. How can we have some reconciliation? Right? So if I keep at the forefront of my mind that I could die at any minute, I want like very valuable relationships, sweet relationships. I want people to know how much they mean to me. We, you start to live like like every day is precious. You don't want to leave any unfinished business with your life.
So you're saying that that stark reality isn't meant to bring you to a dark place where you're just always worried about loss, but it's meant to make your life, for lack of a better word, make your life come alive. It's meant to make you the time that you have more beautiful and valuable and like that. Right?
Yeah, precious.
Precious.
You treat these days like they're precious because they're precious. If you think just like life is going on forever, got all the time, just for example, if I say, Kaustubha, you got to get to LA, that's a sort of a implicit or is sort of a vague direction. I can get to LA, great, I'll hitchhike. Great, I'll take a horse. Great. If I say you got to get to LA by tonight, that's a whole nother criteria for how to get to LA, right? So when we understand, hey, look, life is short. Make the most out of this life. If you understand that there's an end to that timeline, you stop wasting time and resources. We can't waste time and resources. You can't purchase that back. As yogis, we got to value time and we stop wasting it. Life is super short. I mean, you might even get to live longer, but for example, tomorrow you could have a stroke. You could lose your legs. You could lose your speech. I mean, last week when I was sick, I was just like, oh my God, imagine if I just stayed sick like this. People get sick and then their whole life changes in one day. Take advantage of this healthy body and this healthy mind right now to get real focused. And I'm saying this, but I'm saying this to myself as well. All these shows where I'm coming off, or Kaustubha's coming off, like we're the wise sages. It's not. It's actually we're talking to ourselves as well. We need to hear this stuff on a regular basis. You know why? There's a tendency to go right to Maya. As soon as I wake up, I'm like, Maya. I have to go right back into spirit. Kaustubha, I'm going to stop because
That was great. I liked it. There's always whatever pessimism that we read of in these texts or from these wise people. There's an optimism behind it, and the pessimism is opening up the optimism.
Yes. Can I ask you a question, oh wise sage?
Well, you can ask me one if you want.
All right. My question is as follows. This is from Bhakti Will via the Discord thread.
Okay.
So our Discord thread is a crazy happening chat community where they chat. It's actually, when you think of a chat board, you think, what a waste of time. It's not. These guys just talk about incredibly relevant. They share what they're going through. They post recipes. Every time I look at that recipe one, I'm always like, I'm starving. Okay, so this is from Bhakti Will from the Discord thread. My question is as follows. How do I truly submit to Krishna's will? Good question. How do I do this with true sincerity and not merely as an excuse or opt out? By this, I mean, how do I submit without merely saying it? For example, if a ball was rolling towards the edge of a ledge, I could say, it's Krishna's will that it will fall. Or I could endeavor to stop the ball. So do I merely allow what is happening to happen, or do I try to change it according to my will? Sounds like the Serenity Prayer is about to come out. I hope this makes sense. If not, I would welcome the opportunity to discuss it further, elaborate further with you. Any light you could shed would be much appreciated. Bhakta Will.
Thank you, Dr. Will. Dr. Will had also shared that he's, I think Dr. Will was hooked up with the New York Harinam people,
Oh, cool.
you know? Yeah.
Harinam means they're chanting publicly
Out in the street.
in the streets, out in the streets, and there's a gang of people doing that in where do they go? Union Square usually.
They went to the Union Square was the place, but now they went down to Atlanta, and so maybe and with COVID, maybe that service has been taken away from Dr. Will, right?
Ah,
And I think he lost his job too.
Bhakta Will.
Dr. Will, he's
Oh,
he's
Bhakta Will.
going through it, but okay, so you see, Dr. Will's question is not an easy. It's not one of those easy ones like here's the answer, just do it now, because it leads to ultimately the answers. It's one of the mysteries of life. It's one of those things that wise people are always questioning and pondering. Because you see, there's this balance. There's these two different ways of practicing spiritual life. And when do we apply which? One is the passive spirituality, right? Where it's like the world moves as it does. Most people spend their time trying to adjust the material world to try to find more happiness in it. Whereas the wise person says, I'm due a certain amount of pleasure and a certain amount of pain in life due to my past activities. I'm not going to waste my time constantly trying to adjust this. I'm going to accept the world as it is and focus on spirituality. So that's a passive way of approaching spirituality. Then there's an active way of approaching spirituality, whereas like, I want to live as an instrument of the divine will in this world. Right? I want to move through this world being an instrument, as Arjuna was asked to be an instrument of Krishna's in the battle of Kurukshetra. I want to serve and be an active instrument of spiritual divine will. Now, how do I know? So he says, if a ball is falling off the edge of a cliff, am I meant to say, yes, it's meant to fall off and I'm not meant to try to adjust it? Or am I meant to try to stop it as a service? You know, and that's the kind of thing where sometimes the wise person is passive and sometimes the wise person is active. And so it's a subtle question that requires subtle thought. And one of the most important, okay, so then what am I supposed to do? I mean, just one of the basic fundamental approaches to this is that part of the practice of yoga, part of the practice of bhakti yoga, is that we develop relationships with people that we feel are wise. We develop relationships with people who we've seen are firmly rooted to these sacred texts, that they engage with them, that they reflect on them, that they embody them. And when we have those relationships in our life, then we have people to help us approach these questions. Should I be active in this circumstance, or should I be passive? And hopefully gradually it becomes easier. But in one sense, our life is meant to be challenging like that. And I always look to Yudhishthira in the Mahabharata, who was a person that was, more firmly rooted in Dharma than anyone that we can imagine, but who was still questioning all the time, what's the best thing for me to do? I'm not quite sure what's right under this circumstance. That's okay that we struggle with those questions, because this world is so tricky. It makes us, but that very endeavor, that sincere endeavor, God, how do you want me to act under this circumstance? I'm going to approach those that I know are connected with you, that and I'm going to inquire from them. That struggle is part of the process, and that the depth of thought that one puts into that, when it's done with sincerity, is purifying. And Krishna will speak to you. Krishna will speak through his devotees. Krishna will speak through the heart. Krishna will speak to you in different ways. But that's part of the path, is to wonder and to question that. Should I be active? Should I be passive in this circumstance? That's all
God
I
grant me the serenity,
got. Oh yeah, okay.
right?
Little
God grant me the
Francis.
serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and
Okay.
the wisdom to know the difference. Great
There you go.
prayer. Great prayer.
So I hope that's helpful.
Always goes back to recovery group, doesn't it? Kaustubha, that's a great answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I would read you one, but my computer's stuck still.
Computer's stuck. Is that due to my house? Why is it stuck?
I have no idea.
But can you see me?
I can see you. I can see part of any case.
Can you see Mara?
I can see Mara. I can
He's
see
whirling
Seth
around
the
the
welder.
room.
I can
That
see
is damn.
Justin and Emila. I can see Ariel. I can see
Okay.
Sarah, and I can see Chira, and that's all I can see.
Okay. Mara, you gonna ask some questions?
Yeah, I'll ask you a question. Hi, my name's Kieran. I'm 22 and I'm from the UK. I wanted to ask, how do you stop comparing yourself to others and bring yourself to the present moment? I've found the most freedom and therefore happiness when I can focus on I instead of the expectations from others. I feel this is an easy trap to fall into.
Sounds like he already knows. Well, Kieran, good question. How do you stop comparing yourself to others? There's a problem with comparison. Is there someone always around the corner that's better, more beautiful, more attractive, more up and coming, more talented? You can't win this game.
Did you feel there was always an up and coming band on your heels when you were in a band?
Yeah, there's always an up and coming band. You can't. Yeah, this is why. If you don't, and there's a lot of us are out there. I was mentioning this yesterday at the teacher training. Some of us don't really know why we're here. We don't really know why we're here, what we're supposed to do. I got spit into this world. I went through college, and then a headhunter picked me out of college and university, and now I'm just working this job. We should really understand life is short, and we are here to contribute. What is our contribution? We should fully understand what is our contribution in this world. What are we here to give back? We've been given a lot. What are we here to give back? What is our contribution in this lifetime? And some of us are not sure yet. And maybe this is one message that you can take home with you today is, what's your contribution? Not your job, right? We shouldn't look at our work as a job. We should look at it, this is my offering. What am I here to give? And when you really lock into that, don't let anybody bother you. Don't let anybody. It's just sort of like in this, in the village here, we have a train. And whenever the train comes, all the dogs, the coyotes, are like, ooh, oh, oh, oh. You start hearing this, like all the dogs start barking when the train comes. You know the train's coming because you hear a series of dogs barking. Now, let me tell you what the train conductor never does. He never pulls into the village, gets out of the train, says, okay, dogs, please stop barking. We're only going to be here a minute, then we're driving on. No, the train just goes. The dogs bark, but the train keeps going. We got to be like that. We got to be so focused in our service, in our duty, in our offering, that we don't care if people love us. We don't care if people hate us. We don't care if people spit on us or kick dirt in our face. We don't care if we're on the front of the New York Times. We don't care. We are just here to do our service. And we may not do it, and we're going to do it as best we can. And what other people think of me is none of my business. What I think of myself, if I feel like today I worked my hardest, that's got nothing to do with people to my left and to my right. I'm not looking for their validation, and I don't find my worth comparing myself to them. My worth comes from my worthy contribution. Now, if you feel like, you know what, I didn't try my best today, I didn't give my all, then we can start to feel like, man, I got to work, I got to pull myself up. Not to get me self-deprecating, but to see tomorrow's going to change. So we hold ourselves to a high. First of all, we figure out what our offering is. And then when you really know what your offering is, you start to chisel away. How can I make this better? How can I make this more efficient? How can I do this with a better intention? Right? Like Mara's a cook. She knows she's born to cook. She's a great cook. People love her cooking. How can she do it better? How can she do it as a more sincere offering? You know, can she, you know, let's make this all about Mara. What do you say? Can we? Can she, if, for example, if she likes to cook prasad, can she set up an altar in her kitchen where she actually cooks and offers it immediately, and everybody is eating sanctified food? Can she play mantras in the background so it's affecting the consciousness of all her chefs? Can she do that? Mara, let me go in there and do a whole makeover for your business. What do you say?
Come on in. Welcome anytime, Prabhu.
So that is, I don't know, was that useful, Kaustubha? Was that?
I think it was useful. You know, I think it was very useful. I think the mind gets trapped in negative loops. And so part of yoga is just to say, I'm not going to follow that loop and I'm going to turn off that channel. It requires diligence. But I think that may be part of the question too, is that, you know, Kieran sounds to me like an Irish girl's name, but I may be wrong about that. Does anyone know? I'm not sure if Kieran was a male or female name, but I know especially, you know, I think due to the crazy culture that we live in, especially women suffer from this kind of self-torture in a way, comparing themselves to others.
Well, the data's in on that. Social media destroys teenage girls, you know, self-esteem, creates addictive behaviors. Social media itself is, what is social media? But you're comparing yourself to the highlight reel of other people. It's so painful. I know. Here's, you know, what do you see on social media? You see, here's a picture of my bare legs and my feet with my ankles crossed, and I'm in Tahiti, doesn't get better than this. And you're like, and I'm sitting here in loser land.
So, yeah.
And it's not their whole life. It is a tiny, thin piece of their life. It's like everybody's become their own private Madison Avenue, selling themselves as this is the way to be. And what it does is it creates this, what am I doing with my life? What am I? And if I'm not so ambitious to sell my fraction of my life and my greatness, then I start to get into depression and thinking like, what am I doing so wrong? Why don't they have the real Facebook where you actually share your lowest point of your day? Today I binged, ate again, and then vomited.
And now I feel better.
Post that one. Post that one.
And now I feel better.
Today I fell into addictive behavior again. Today I did nothing. I did absolutely nothing with my life. I turned on social media and then I just scrolled around, you know, animal attacks, animal, and I did that for about 2 hours. Then I watched like funny clips on some other feed, and then I watched Jalal's for 2 hours. You don't know what Jalal's is? Okay. Jalal's, okay, don't Google it. My kids got me into it. Anyway, it's just like, why don't people show that highlight reel of their life? And the fact is, life is like full spectrum, and social media can get you down. That's why again, a push for our recovery group is you have a sharing circle. And the beautiful thing about a sharing circle is you realize, here's my struggle, here's my pain, and you feel like I'm about to unload all my pain on these people. And then you start to realize everybody's struggling and in pain. And if they're not today, they are tomorrow, because that's reality. And that's why those things are so good, because we can identify that the world is not just glossy, it's also prickly. It's a prickly planet. That's the name of my new band, Prickly Planet. All right. Okay, Kaustubha, you ready for a question, man?
Yep.
Because I'm just going to keep on talking otherwise.
Hit me.
I like having Kaustubha up here. He's actually in the other room. We separated rooms.
We're very close. You're just right over there.
So, this is from Nicole E.
Nicole E.
Not Nicole CH, Nicole E.
Okay.
So, I have been listening every day for months now and soaking in the life lessons of the Bhagavatam and our wonderful teachers, Raghunath and Kaustubha. But man, am I lost with the stories and the characters.
Okay.
She did what to who, now what? Is there a recommended order that we can read or listen to the texts. Sound, e.g., sounds like the Mahabharata will familiarize us with the main personalities. But the Gita, I'm okay with. But where does the Chaitanya Charitamrita come in? Please unconfuddle me, Nicole E. That's a good question. You know what, Kaustubha, I didn't tell you this, but somebody came up to me yesterday from the teacher training and said, that class Kaustubha gave. What was the title of your class yesterday?
Normally I call it the 4 Paths of Yoga.
4 Passive Yoga, which is, somebody said to me, goes, I've been listening, somebody at the training said, I've been listening to the show for a long time, but when Kaustubha gave that class on the 4 Paths of Yoga, it was like a big zoom out. And I feel like I got everything in perspective in the big picture. So that's a little compliment I wanted to
I'm
share.
happy to hear that. Thank you. And actually, I'm working on a book for that class,
Great. And you know that it is confusing because there's so many people with, the people's names aren't like Joe, Louie, Jen. It's always like Dhritarashtra, Yuyutsava, Bibala Mangala Thakur. What? Bibala Mangala Thakur.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, Prabhupada.
Better known as Saraswati Maharaj.
So yeah, and it's like Bhagavad Gita, I'm okay with the other 2 characters in that one, basically. But so a great question from Nicole E. And so there's a couple things. There were a couple of things in that question, if I remember right, and I don't have it in front of me right now, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, Raghunath. But one was like, is there an order of books that I should be reading? And yeah, well, there's a recommendation that I can make. If Nicole, if you're at that place in your life, you're saying, I want to dedicate some time to really understand this Bhakti Yoga tradition, then I would say, sure. Here's a suggestion. Here's some books to start with. Here's some books if you want to get the overall picture of it. Srila Prabhupada did something really interesting, is that he came to America and he was 70 years old. And he was starting this dynamic kind of, spiritual movement, but he didn't know how long he was going to live. And so he tried to put out some books right off the bat so that if he didn't live long enough, that people would have something to work with. He had already done the first canto of Bhagavatam, so that's there. So I'd recommend first canto of Bhagavatam. I'd recommend Bhagavad Gita, right? Next thing he was working on was the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Then he put out the Krishna book, which is the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, but told as a story. And then Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is kind of a lot of the important teachings from the Chaitanya Charitamrita condensed. And then he put out the Nectar of Devotion, which is a summary study of a very important book by one of Sri Chaitanya's followers, Rupa Goswami.
Kaustubha,
Yeah.
I agree, but I can say myself, and maybe I'm just a little extra like dumb stone, but I could not make it through that first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita when I was new to this. All the names.
You haven't heard me. Well, but that's what she's asking about. So
I think the gateway drug is Journey Home, because
you have not let me complete my.
That's my problem. I go to the master and I only listen to partial.
You have not let me. So I was going to say those. First of all, she's asking about these books, so I'm recommending some of those books to start with. Also for introductory books, just for pure introduction, Science of Self-Realization, Journey Home, Journey Within. Right. I'd say those are excellent books to start. But she's also asking about the characters in these books, so I'm sharing that. But let me also share that. And then she said the Mahabharata seems to be like you get a rundown of the characters, but actually you don't get a rundown of all the characters of the Mahabharata, because maybe she's saying that because we've been dealing with Mahabharata characters in this part of the Bhagavatam in the first canto. But once we get past this first canto, you don't hear too much from them anymore. And there's like a huge list of characters. And as you begin to invest your time in this literature, you realize this. First point of advice, don't look at it saying, oh my God, there's just too much to learn here. Think of it like, oh my God, there's so much to learn here. that there's like no end to this vast literature that's going to be, just it, like when you read a real good book and then it ends, you're like, oh man. But there's like no end. These books are huge. There's tons of literature, and even when you finish it, you just want to go back and start it again. And in this way, you'll learn all these characters. Like with Bhagavatam, you see there's a connection to every character, that all these characters are in one way or another connected to Krishna. If you look at Mahabharata, what do you have? You have the Pandavas. The Pandavas were the close friends and cousins of Krishna. And then you have their mother, Kunti, their wife, Draupadi. You have their uncles, Dhritarashtra, who represented, the blind one, who represented materialistic thought. And then their wise uncle, Vidura, who represented, clear spiritual thought and dharma. You have their surrogate grandfather, Bhishma. Then you have characters floating around Mahabharata that are also going to float around into the Bhagavatam, like Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas, and Narada, like the pure, the devotee, the pure bhakta amongst the devas. You'll be able to say all of these characters have a connection with Krishna, and that's Mahabharata characters. And then you go over to Bhagavatam, and Bhagavatam is like super fascinating because it describes like how Lord Vishnu lies down in the universe, and from his navel is born Lord Brahma, right, on a lotus flower. And then it describes how Lord Brahma, he's this engineer of the universe, and through his meditation, he creates Lord Shiva, Narada. He creates progenitors like Atri, Marichi, Svayambhuva Manu. And from those three come lineages that, like, from Atri comes the sun god, and from the sun god comes like the dynasty of kings that Krishna appears in and the Pandavas appear in. And then from Marichi comes Kasyapa, and Kasyapa marries Diti and Aditi. And from Diti comes the Asuras, right? All like the darker characters. And from Diti comes like all the devas, all the demigods. And through them other, and ultimately Lord Ram appears in that lineage. And then from Svayambhuva Manu, he has these daughters that marry these great progenitors, and then so many important characters come through that, and also incarnations and avatars come through that, like the very mysterious Narnarayan Rishi and Rishabdev and others.
Now that you've said this, there's too many names. Now I realize there's so many. I'll never get these names.
But I'm just saying, just adjust the attitude. And we can put, what we should do, Raghu? This is what we can do.
Just the attitude. That's my walk away with today's class. Just adjust your damn attitude, people.
No, I'm not saying it like that to Nicole.
Adjust your attitude.
I'm not saying, Nicole, adjust your damn attitude. I'm saying, no, but in a positive way, adjust your attitude and see that this is great. There's so many to learn here. Anytime you want to ask us, we'll help clarify for you. And what we can do is we can send some charts up on the general thread on Discord.
Someone just wrote that. Okay. Special K.
Awesome.
Someone just wrote that. They put on the Discord thread these charts. The family trees. It's a family tree. It's really helpful, right? Oh, I get it. They're married to I still have to refer to a family tree sometimes.
But here's one final piece of advice that's really easy and helpful too. Makes it simpler, right? Because I find that there's these names, but if you can put an image to the name, it helps. So look at the pictures in the books too.
Oh, that's
but
good.
Also, right here, Raghunath, right?
Yeah,
what am I holding?
Right. He's my massive Mahabharata comic book collection.
Yeah,
you want
Amar Chitra Kata.
Amar Chitra Kata comic book.
Get the comic books. They're actually quite accurately presented for the most part. You find that, Raghu?
It's up to my reading level too. Yeah, they're incredibly accurate. They're more accurate, I think, than ever. That's why Rocco, my son, is so sharp with all this stuff.
So actually, they're fun and they're kind of cool. Like, they're stylish. They got a cool style to them. And but you'll learn a lot through them. You'll learn the characters. And then for the more serious study, when you're studying Bhagavatam, you'll know who they are.
Yeah.
So that's another way to go. All right.
I mean,
hope
they're a
that's helpful,
little,
Nicole.
they don't
They're
explain
little.
it like, they don't give
But
that.
you help you understand the characters and put pictures in your mind
for
of the
sure.
characters. That's my point.
For sure.
Okay.
You know how my kids also know? They watch that Ramayana. If you YouTube search Ramayana Japanimation cartoon, English, you will learn the Ramayana from watching this cartoon. My little kid, my 6-year-old knows it from this really well. I'm not recommending that's how you learn all your sacred literature through animated TV series, but helps. There's even a little Krishna. I mean, this stuff wasn't around when I was young. There's even that little Krishna videos. They're actually pretty good. You ever watch those, Kaustubha? What's it called? Pixlar? What's that called?
I don't have
Pixlar?
kids, so it's like I don't get into that stuff.
Mara, have you watched Little Krishna?
No.
No, but just watch Little. Have you guys watched Little Krishna? What the hell? Right. Anyway, Little Krishna. Thank you, Charlie McKinnon. He has. Anyway, YouTube search Little Krishna. It's incredible. It's
Okay.
no, it's good. All right.
I'm sure it is.
All right, Mara, what's up? What do you got for me?
All right. This question is from Sky. Thank you so much.
Wait, no, hold it. We're not doing that one.
Oh, okay. How about from Richman Cuso?
Yes. Richman Cuso,
Yeah, the golfer.
The golfer.
Last week,
known as the golf demon, we call him. He's engaged in that
He tries
evil.
to lure us in with his golfing temptations.
He tried to suck us into golfing. We're on to you, Richman.
Sent us this message. Hey, maybe you
will
can
not
come
corrupt
golfing with us and explain the Bhagavad Gita over the green. But me and Kaustubha knew. Okay, Rich. Rich is cool.
All right, from Rich.
I like Rich. We like Rich.
Last week, you mentioned anyone can fall in love with Krishna, and there is instruction to do so. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, devotion, verses 13 to 15. Did I get that right? I read my copy, and it wasn't that clear to me. I've been searching for something to fill that hole since I can remember. Please advise on how to fall in love with Krishna.
There you go. How did you fall in love with Krishna?
Well, to know him is to love him.
All right.
That's why that's the beauty of this culture. It gives insider info to Krishna's personality, to God's personality, to the higher right? The higher power, the universe. The universe is directing me. You want to know what the universe looks like? You want to know what the universe carries in his belt? You want to know what the universe likes to eat? The Vedic teachings teach about that. You hear about the universe. You hear about the higher power, right? You get to know who's in the castle and what the person in the castle does for fun. These Krishna Leela, this Ram Leela, these pastimes, these avatars, these comic books, they give you insight into these charming, wonderful, heroic stories that give you insight in this person's life. By hearing about the person, you fall in love with him. He quoted a verse Kaustubha was quoting from the Gita. It's actually text 13. One who is not envious, but is kind friend to all living beings, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in bhakti, or in devotional service, with determination. Their mind and intelligence fixed on me, Krishna is saying this, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. So there are behaviors, right, that we can become close, that invite Krishna closer to us, for sure. That was done in text 13 and 14 of chapter 12 in the Gita. There is a behavior that attracts Krishna. There is a way, there are desires that attract Krishna, that attract truth, that attract wisdom. And then there are behaviors and activities that repel divinity, truth, God, Krishna, etc. So yeah, there are definitely ways, and those ways described in that verse are good behaviors. But truthfully, what happens is we start to hear on a regular basis truth and descriptions of Krishna and these avatars. And then what happens is that starts to take over the heart. And it starts to become the sounding board for other things that we hear about. We find that hearing Krishna Leela starts to satisfy our soul. I just told the ridiculous story, which I'm not going to tell again today, but the simple way to tell the story is when you take a fish out of water, the fish, you can take the fish anywhere. You can do anything with the fish, but the fish will never be happy. You can dress up the fish in fancy clothes. You can take them for a car ride. You can take them to the, on a holiday cruise. Fishes aren't happy unless fishes are in water. We are spiritual beings. We become happy when we are engaged in spiritual activity. It fulfills our heart. Even the most refined material activity gets stale, gets boring. It's sort of like, big deal, been there, done that. That's just the way material life is because we're a spiritual being. So when we want to fall in love with Krishna, we dive into that spiritual life. And then all of a sudden, nothing is the same anymore. And a lot of us are experiencing like that. Like, nothing is more valuable than my time with Krishna or with in connection, in meditation, in chanting. I always say this analogy, like, in my life right now, I travel a lot for my teaching, and sometimes I'll do some reunion with my band, and we will pull into what will be considered an exotic city. We'll go to Rome, or we'll go to Berlin, or we'll go to London, or we'll go to, Southern California. And the first thing I really want to do in any of those places is find some place so I can sit in peace and chant. It's not like, I'm going to climb the Eiffel Tower. Ah! You know what I mean? And even if I do, okay, I'm going to climb the Eiffel Tower, it really comes down to, let's see if I can chant walking up the Eiffel Tower. Let's see if I can, say a prayer at the top of once you get that taste for spiritual life, there's nothing of the material world that will even come close to that. So I think, Rich, you're doing it. We are on a regular basis hearing truth and then getting attracted to Krishna's stories. And what happens is it develops more of an eagerness. So you ask questions like this, right? Now, someone could argue, well, material life does the same thing. I get addicted to material life. I want to do more material things. But what happens is with material life and the addictions, it never quite satisfies. It always leaves sort of a burning emptiness in our heart. And oftentimes it can degrade us. Whereas spiritual life doesn't have that thing. Krishna gives us more. It also makes us hanker, also makes us eager, also makes us addictive. But what happened is Krishna is luring you right out of the material world, whether you know it or not. You might, and sometimes you don't even realize. Look at Mara. She's sitting there every morning. She's driving over here in the old days. Krishna's like lured her right out of the material world. Nothing will ever be the same for Mara again. It's nice to witness it juxtaposed from where we were even like a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But a lot of you can look at yourself and on your own spiritual path. Like, wow, I'm in this thing with 2 feet. I didn't even realize. Me and Bobby were joking about that. What's that, Prabhu?
I was going to say, what's going to happen to Rich Mancuso one day? He's just going to wake up and he'll say, I don't even feel like playing the demoniac game of golf today.
The evil game of golf.
I've lost the taste for it.
I've lost the taste.
Only then.
He's going to golf. He's going to picture the golf balls are like little demon heads. This is Kamsa. Yeah. I'm the servant of Lord Krishna. Oh, yeah. Tee this one off right at Jarasanda's forehead. Boom. Anyway, Rich, you're doing it. You're in it. Hearing on a regular basis. It's going to start to take up your heart. We say that Lord Chaitanya said there's 3 things in this God-shaped hole of our heart. One is the desire for validation in the material world. We want so bad for people to like us. You're going to get over that soon. There's no amount of likes that will fulfill that God-shaped hole in our heart. Then people want wealth. They think, oh, no, I just need a little bit more money. If I can just get a little bit more money. There's no amount of wealth to put in that God-shaped hole. And number 3 is There's no soulmate that will fulfill the God-shaped hole. That doesn't mean you can't have someone you love, someone you just want to spend your life with, etc., but they're not your God. Don't make them your God. You're setting it up for failure. You're setting them up to never fulfill you. Huh? This is like super important to understand these three things. Don't set yourself up for failure. Hear those three things: validation, money, soulmate.
Oh, you're taking that from the Najanam syndrome.
Yeah. Stole it right from Lord Chaitanya. Repurposing it.
Okay, is that what you're doing?
Upcycling it, calling it my thing, trademarking, cashing in.
Okay, hold this.
Mara's like, this is ridiculous. Yeah, you just so that's what we do. You're supposed to hear these things and you take them out and put them out in your own language to your people. Right?
Very tricky.
Kaustubha, are you ready?
Yeah, bring it on.
Bring it on. Come on. Where'd it go? Kaustubha, wise one. In lockdown, I've been reading Prabhupada's purports. This is from Harshal Gore. What's up with Harshal Gore? This guy gets every week. It's like the Harshal Gore show.
Harshal Gore is great. I love this guy.
Yeah, no, he's got good questions.
We've got to
in
go
lockdown.
to the UK,
I've been reading. Let's go to the UK. I like the UK. As soon as this
whole thing opens up,
they're smarter and funnier than us.
Okay.
You notice that? They're all funny and they're all smart. They know. They got better education than we did.
Right. Except for Mary. She got well educated.
She was well educated, but it may not even be up to par with the British. Even with all her private school, tens of thousands of dollars spent, and she may not be up with Mahesh and Bhavani over there, or Harshal. Okay, Harshal says, in lockdown, I've been reading Prabhupada's purports in the Bhagavad Gita. He mentions mayavadis quite a few times. Who are these mayavadis? Where are they? Is this a different sect of Hinduism? Where are the mayavadis? The term has never been mentioned to me whilst growing up. Who are the Harshal Gore? Does that sound Indian? Is he Indian, Harshal?
Harshal, yeah, I think so. Maybe.
Well, I don't know. I've never heard Harshal, man. Harshal Gore.
Like Harsha.
Yeah, I guess. Like Gore.
Yeah, like Gore. Yeah.
Like Gora Avani, like Gora Golden.
Like Harshada. Harshada.
Harshada. Yeah, Harsha.
It has to do with humor and like that. All right. Is that the end of the question?
That's it.
All right. Great question, Harshal. You always got great questions.
It's all about Harshal.
It's not all about Harshal, but he's got great questions. So, yeah, if you read Prabhupada's books, he's talking about mayavadis a lot.
Yeah, what's up with them? How bad are they?
So he's asking, is a different sect in Hinduism? That's one way you might frame it. But let's not use the word Hinduism. Let's use the word Vedanta. Okay, Vedanta is a school of philosophical thought from which Hinduism is like stemming. But Hinduism is like, it could mean so many different things. But within Vedanta, which means we accept the great works of Vyasadeva, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutra, the Mahabharata with the Bhagavad Gita, the Puranas with the Srimad Bhagavatam, we accept those as authoritative, that there's truth in them, that that they represent absolute truth. If you accept that, you're a Vedantin. And within the schools of Vedanta, there are two major viewpoints, and they're at odds with each other. So much of everything that they accept is the same, but the conclusion is different. And so one of the groups is called the Advaita Vedantins, Advaita Vedanta. And then the other group you could call Bhakti Vedanta or Devotional Vedanta. Or practically, for the most part, you can say the Vaishnavas, the worshippers of Vishnu and Krishna. All right? Now, when it comes to understanding what is the absolute truth, what is God, you could say, the Advaita Vedantins will say And this is, and when we say the Advaita Vedantins, we mean, this is what Prabhupada is referring to when he says the mayavadis. Mayavadin, it means that they say that, well, the devotional Vedantins say that the source of everything is Krishna. And that Krishna's form is spirit. It's eternal. It's unlimited. Like that. The mayavadins say any form, including Krishna's form, is maya, is illusion. It's temporary and shifting and disappears and is not real. They'll say that all form is illusion, that we are all God, but somehow we've lost touch with that, and that the conclusion of what the Vedantas teach is that you have to rediscover that you are God, and at that point you merge into the oneness, which is just like a big divine light, and you exist in bliss.
Sounds great.
Now, you mayavadi. Whereas what the devotional Vedantins say, the Bhakti Vedantins, the Vaishnavas, they say that this conception of merging into the oneness, one can go there, but that is only a temporary state itself, that there's more beyond that. If you look at Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, there's no truth beyond me. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that, and this is, sometimes you read Prabhupada's commentaries and it's the languages that he's using, it sounds so confrontational. But really, he's just like speaking as the Bhagavad Gita says. But Krishna says that the abudhaya, that the abudha means no intelligence, right? That those who are not so intelligent, that I'm even softening it when I say it, the unintelligent think that I was unmanifested at one time and now have manifested this form. But Krishna says, no, my form is eternal. And that my individuality and your individuality are eternal. That in the end, we don't merge into a big light. In the end, we exist in our eternal forms. And why? Because that facilitates the sharing of divine love, right? The mayavadis will say that all form and all relationship is illusion. Therefore, even love is illusion, right? Because love involves two. As soon as you have two, you're an illusion, they'll say. Whereas the devotional Vedantas say, no, you've misinterpreted it. You haven't understood it correctly. That we exist as individuals, but without the defects of the material energy. We look at forms here and we say they cause pain and they bring on conflict and they age and they become diseased and they die. Spirituality must be beyond that. There must be no form, there must be no relationship, etc. Whereas the devotional Vedanta said, no, you misunderstood it. That there is spiritual form and there's spiritual relationship that are beyond this. And I shared something in that class yesterday that if you ask what is the difference or what is the opposite of being in $1 million in debt, which is a situation of anxiety, one might say having no debt, but that wouldn't be exactly the opposite. That would be a negation of it. But the opposite of being $1 million in debt would be having $1 million. And so what the devotional Vedantins say about the mayavadis is that what they're talking about, what they see as the highest goal is just a neutral state. But beyond, what is the opposite of suffering in the material world where there's relationship and form? It means not suffering in a realm where there is no form and no relationship. But they would say, no, that's just neutral. That's like not being in debt. But then there's having $1 million, right? There's relationship and form that's full of anxiety in this realm. And then there's neutral. And then there's the realm where there's spiritual relationship and spiritual form. And the Bhagavatam makes this all perfectly clear. But the Mayavadis tend to value the books like the Upanishads more, which are written in a more cryptic way. They're more easily interpreted with this, what we could call an impersonal viewpoint. Whereas when you get to the Bhagavatam, it all becomes super clear that it's Krishna that is the source of the Brahman, that divine light, but he's beyond it still, right? that the supreme absolute truth can be understood on 3 different levels: Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, God within the heart, the all-pervasive spiritual energy, and also God as a person, Bhagavan. And so much of the Bhagavatam is about, it's the author himself, the person that wrote the Upanishads, Vyasadeva, saying, let me clear this all up. And let me make it very clear that ultimately this all extends from a divine person that you can have a loving relationship with, and that's the goal. Now, I think Harshal asked, where are these mayavadis? Where do they exist? And in the way that it's come down in, say, modern Hindu, and the way Hinduism has come down in the modern age, and when I say modern age, let's say for the past century, is a lot of the figures, big figures in Hinduism, these gurus are kind of blending it all, because the Bhakti movement became so popular in India, and the Bhakti movement is that devotional movement, and the Mayavadi philosophy is kind of dry. It's like, renounce everything, don't enjoy anything, based on just cold analysis, release yourself of all material attachments, emerge into the oneness. Whereas the Bhakti, the Bhakti movement was just, there's so much beautiful poetry about the beauty of Krishna and the love of Krishna's devotees and the pastimes and in the poetry and the song and the dance and all of that. So now with a lot of the modern gurus, and I use the term, loosely here, is they blend Mayavadi philosophy, there is no God, you are God, with a lot of the beauty and the talk of love that comes from the Bhakti tradition, and you really get a mess. It's like I have more respect for a straight out Mayavadi that teaches Mayavadi philosophy as it is, than someone that mixes Bhakti with it to try to make it seem more attractive. Now, where does it exist now? If you read books like Eckhart Tolle, it's basically, that's, a lot of that is kind of largely influenced by Mayavadi philosophy, that there's no, and this is, I'm going to share my own analysis. But why does Mayavadi philosophy, why has it always been there? Why has it been popular? Why does it continue to be popular in this day and age? Personally, because I feel it lacks, the presentation lacks a lot of knowledge. If I am God, then how did I fall into illusion? It's just a basic fundamental question that the Mayavadis really cannot answer. They work around it. It's your Leela, it's your play. Well, why the hell am I playing, getting a toothache, getting cancer, being humiliated? That doesn't sound like play to me. How have I ended up in this situation of suffering if I am God? Whereas where the devotional Vedantins say, and what the Bhagavad Gita clearly says, is I'm not God, I'm the energy of God, but I'm minuscule and I'm dependent on God, and I can be easily covered by the material energy. That philosophy makes sense to me, right? But if psychologically I have a difficult time dealing with there's someone above me, that someone to surrender to, then I might embrace a philosophy that says there's no one beyond me. And the Mayavadi philosophy interprets the Upanishads and so on like that. So Prabhupada is always speaking against this because he wants us to.
Beautiful way it's explained by Lord Chaitanya. It's truthfully, when I heard that teaching of Lord Chaitanya, the Chincha Beda Beda Tattva, which is yes, you are, because what the Mayavadi thing is, it's partial truth. Yes, God is impersonal, and what else? God is personal, and what else? You're God. But what else?
You're not God.
Fully God. You are a speck of the ocean from the ocean. And this speck can be covered. We are one with God, but simultaneously completely different from God, like a drop from the sea. And this drop can be covered. And that, I feel like that simple statement ties it all together. Yeah, you're God. But God can also, you are tiny. You're not, you're finite.
Just to give one example of why Prabhupada brings it up so much, one example that he uses a lot is with the verse 934 from the Bhagavad Gita, which is the verse that is right in the center of the Bhagavad Gita. So in some ways, it's considered to be the very heart of the Bhagavad Gita. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mameva syasi yuktaivam atmanam madparayana. It's saying madparayana, you know, like he uses devoted to me. He uses the word me in this verse 5 or 6 times. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. He's saying me, 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 me. It's Krishna as explicitly as he could possibly do. If God wanted to share a message that, hey, reconnect with me, and you will find your fulfillment that way. Reconnect with your divine source. It's me. You know, he couldn't have been more explicit. Engage your mind in always thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisances to me and worship me because of being completely absorbed in me. Surely you will come to me. And he'll say the same verse again at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, but he say, because you're very dear to me, right? So it's in a very personal way. Krishna's saying it's in your best interest to reconnect with me. And then a philosopher comes along, a mayavadi philosopher comes along and says, when Krishna says me in this verse, there's a very famous translation and commentary in Bhagavatam where a famous politician said, when Krishna says me, he's talking about the dark unknown within. And Prabhupada saying, what the hell could he do to be more explicit about it? You know, he's saying me again and again and again and again. So that's why, you know, he because he wants us to be able to have, you know, understand the fulfillment of these texts, he'll commonly point out the Mayavadi philosophers, not because he hates them, but because he wants to show that there's an alternative to that can open up the full message of Vyasadev's teachings on yoga. And so there's a lot of talk about the Mayavadis. All right.
Woo! You know, I hit the button right at the right time, but I was on mute. What do you think about that? Kaustubha and the Zoomers and the others. Thanks for all the others writing in. If you're an other and you haven't written in, let us know you are out there. Let us know. And thanks everybody for joining us. Wisdom of the Sages is a community-supported podcast. So if you're getting something out of this, give back and help this boat keep floating. We want to keep doing this. And we've set up a whole incentivizing program, a yoga, what do we call it? We call it like a yoga resource center for live classes, archive classes, not just physical, you know, not just like a physical classes, but workshops, trainings, everything is online. And look, wow, look at this head. Kaustubha's head just came in the room. We try to do this every day for you, and really for us too. We get a lot of benefit. Thanks for all the Zoomers who are so dedicated and loyal. And if you too want to be a Zoomer, you can enter our secret club and download or what do they call it? Unlock the secret goodies that Mara has to offer by just emailing her. Oh, Mara, please give me the goodies. Give me the secret codes.
And she'll say, first give up golf.
First give up golf and you can have the secret codes, you golf demons. You got to email her at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Thanks everybody for joining us. Look at this.
People on Facebook, watching on Facebook.
Oh yeah, and everybody who's watching on Facebook. Hey, and all you guys on Zoomers are our special little minions. All you Zoomers, I want you to somehow put on your Instagram or Instagram live accounts that tomorrow we have a special show. We're trying to make this community grow. So put it on that Mike D. Remember, some people couldn't care less about you and your spiritual path, but they might like the Beastie Boys. So, so spread the word. Say, hey man, I got a really cool Mike D. I know you like the Beastie Boys. You like 90s white hip hop stuff? Come on. We got something for you tomorrow. It's a little spiritual. It's a little 90s hip hop. We got it for you. And make this community grow bigger and bigger. And like